This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Monday, July 29th, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
Trump and Vance hit the campaign trail as Harris scores huge campaign donations. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
Millions of Americans under air quality alerts this morning as wildfires blaze in parts of the West.
They were scared because they smelled smoke.
I'm Clayton Neville.
An Illinois family calling for justice after their loved one shot in the head by a deputy. I'm Pamela Furr.
Two former FBI agents settle lawsuits with the government. Norman Hall has that story.
On Wall Street, 3 trading days left in July. Stocks are coming off a rally from last Friday. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
BMW is recalling nearly 300,000 vehicles in the U.S. I'm Mike Hempen.
The Justice Department is both warning and filing a lawsuit against TikTok. We'll tell you why. All ahead on America in the Morning. Vice President Kamala Harris continues to raise big money as the Democrats' unofficial nominee for president. Over the weekend, Donald Trump, along with his vice presidential running mate J.D. Vance, were on the attack. With the latest from the campaign trail, here's our John Stolnis in Washington.
Speaking to supporters in St. Cloud, Minnesota Friday, former President Trump said Harris's role in fostering a crisis along the southern border disqualifies her from being president.
No person who deliberately releases these kinds of savage criminals to prey on our youth and our people, not just youth. Elderly people, too, are tremendous targets, should ever be trusted with power. Again, she has no clue. She has no clue. She's evil.
And in a Florida speech later Friday, Trump criticized Harris for not attending Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's speech before Congress on Thursday.
Because that's her original thought. That's where she comes from. She doesn't like Jewish people. She doesn't like Israel. That's the way it is.
Harris's team noted her husband, Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff, is Jewish. Meanwhile, the cash continues to roll in for the Harris campaign. Now $200 million raised in her first week as President Biden's unofficial replacement atop the ticket, with 170,000 new volunteers signing up. In a video post this weekend, Harris focused on rallying young supporters in the battleground state of Georgia.
Because young voters showed up, we have made so much progress, historic progress, on everything from gun violence prevention to taking on the climate crisis. And this November, we will win again.
On Saturday, the New York Times published excerpts from numerous emails written by Senator J.D. Vance and a transgender classmate from Yale between 2014 and 2017, in which, among other things, Vance called Trump a morally reprehensible human being, and another in which he said he hated the police for negative experiences he'd had, saying, quote, "I can't imagine what a black guy goes through." In a new Fox News poll out over the weekend, Harris leads Trump 45 to 43%, with RFK Jr. in the poll getting 7%. Without RFK Jr., it's a 49-49 tie between the two. John Stolnis, Washington.
A massive wildfire continues burning in California as people in several states are under fire warnings out west. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports air quality for millions of Americans will be impacted.
The Park Fire has burned more than 350,000 acres so far, making it one of the largest wildfires in California history, according to Governor Gavin Newsom.
You're hearing aerial assets above, putting all hands on deck, 350,000 acres and growing.
Cal Fire says the blaze has destroyed 134 structures after moving from Chico to Butte and Tehama counties. Sunday, the fire was 12% contained after it went days at no containment.
With the dogs, they were literally really quiet. They were scared, and because they smelled smoke.
Residents spoke with Fox News.
Whatever we had can be replaced, but I wouldn't have left the animals at all.
According to Cal Fire, the Park Fire has been a challenging one to fight.
We've been experiencing large numbers of spot fires. The fuel that's burning with the brush and the large timber can throw those embers out a great distance ahead of the main fire, and that can make controlling the fire more difficult.
Fire Captain Robert Foxworthy says evacuation zones are changing with conditions and are still very much in play.
The Park Fire, we've had quite a few evacuation warnings and orders put out. We're continuing to see them through the duration of this incident. So my biggest thing to the public is, should you be in an area, especially where there's an active fire and you get the alert to leave, please do so. It's much safer for yourself. It's also much safer for the firefighters, and they can then prioritize fighting that fire and getting it extinguished over protecting the public that's still in the fire area.
The park fire was started after authorities say a man who was eventually arrested pushed a burning car into a gully near Chico. The White House says it's closely watching the park fire, and President Biden directed his team to do everything possible to help. This as other parts of the West are dealing with high heat and dangerous fire conditions too. Fire burning in Idaho and Oregon, and red flag warnings extend into Utah and Colorado. In the western U.S. and Canada, millions of people today under air quality alerts. I'm Clayton Neville.
The top stories of the day are sponsored by Sleep Number. Sleep better tonight. Save 40% on a Sleep Number limited edition smart bed, only at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com. Woman killed, cop fired. That story when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Severe weather outlook on America in the Morning from AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
With the storm track forced to pivot around an area of strong high pressure that is centered over the southern United States, two separate disturbances will lead to two adjacent areas with the risk for severe weather later today. In the easternmost zone stretching from central Iowa and southern Wisconsin southward to perhaps the Nashville metropolitan area, storms through the night will be capable of localized damaging wind gusts and rainfall that can produce flash flooding. Farther to the west from the Dakotas into much of northern Nebraska, those threats will be joined by the risk for hail within thunderstorms starting this afternoon. Otherwise, much of the central and southern plains should have a fairly dry day with some spotty thunderstorms for northern Kansas as well as around the Houston area. The southeast, on the other hand, remains more active, especially from Alabama eastward, with rounds of thunderstorms bringing an enhanced flash flooding risk for some interior sections of the region, as well as areas northward into the Ohio Valley through midweek, with travel disruptions likely in some spots. Elsewhere, a storm over the Atlantic will actually back westward into the northeast and parts of the coastal mid-Atlantic today, meaning showers and even some rumbles of thunder from eastern Maryland through New Jersey and points northeast to western Maine, with thunderstorms in association with a separate storm from western Pennsylvania into Michigan as a rather wet early week pattern unfolds for these areas. In the west, monsoon thunderstorm activity continues for southeastern Arizona and southwestern New Mexico, with coverage not quite as widespread as in some recent days. Showers spread into the Pacific Northwest, with some steadier rain generally remaining closer to the Washington coastline, with places from Montana to California looking mostly dry today. That's the weather across America. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember, you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. More than 3 weeks after a woman was shot in her Illinois home by a now-fired sheriff's deputy, people are rallying for justice and reforms. Pamela Furr has that story.
Vigils popping up all over Illinois after Sonia Massey was shot by a Sangamon County Sheriff's deputy. Now, they were called to her home after she thought there'd been someone outside. Once inside the house, though, things escalated quickly, according to body cam footage, and ended with Massey on the floor with a gunshot wound to the head. Sean Grayson has been fired and is now charged with murder. The family demanding justice.
He needs to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
We've learned Grayson, years before this incident, had been discharged from the Army after 2 years for serious misconduct and has a history of DUIs. CNN also reporting he failed to obey a command while working for another sheriff's office in Illinois and was told he needed high-stress decision-making classes. Grayson has pleaded not guilty to the murder charges and is being held in custody until trial. Meanwhile, demonstrators rallied over the weekend in Chicago, demanding Congress take action on police reform. I'm Pamela Furr.
2 former FBI officials have settled their lawsuits with the Justice Department over leaked text messages. Correspondent Norman Hall reports.
Peter Strzok, a former top counterintelligence agent who played a crucial role in the investigation into Russian election interference in 2016, settled his case for $1.2 million. Lisa Page, an FBI lawyer who exchanged text messages with Strzok, also reached a separate agreement. Court records reviewed by the Associated Press show she is to be paid $800,000. The two had sued the Justice Department over a 2017 episode in which officials shared copies with reporters of text messages they had sent to each other, including ones that described former President Trump as an idiot and a loathsome human. Strzok's attorney says the settlement vindicates the privacy interests of all government employees. Norman Hall, Washington.
Winning gold. Sports betting on the Olympics. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments is a fiduciary, always putting clients' interests first. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning for the final 3 days of July trading after a Friday rally, capping off a volatile week last week. But stocks ripped on Friday on June inflation at 2.5%. That came in as expected.
Inflation in general is still receding. By the way, we've been able to forecast the inflation readings really well. Economists have in the last several months. That shows you that it's on a bit more predictable track, less capacity to scare the market. So it just didn't disturb the general view of, hey, we got a shot at the soft landing and the Fed's going to probably cut in September.
CNBC's Mike Santoli. The Dow soaring 600 points last Friday. It was the only index in the green for the week, though. U.S. crude oil, it's been falling for 3 straight weeks now. AAA says the national average for a gallon of regular hovering around $3.50. It's been holding there for about the last month. Down 18 cents a gallon from this same time last summer. Warner Brothers Discovery suing the NBA, trying to secure the media rights that were given to Amazon. And with sports betting now legal in more than 40 U.S. states, the gambling apps bracing for record Olympic wagers.
When the Olympics happened in Tokyo in 2021, 40% of Americans could then wager on sports in their home states legally. Now, 67% can't. 16 states more have launched legal sports betting. 3 states have added online betting, including the biggest, New York. And what will make a difference for the sportsbook here? Viewership. It's expected to be closely linked with wagering activity. So Peacock streaming the competitions will help. Also, star power should boost betting. You've got LeBron James, Katie Ledecky, Simone Biles all out there and in front of the cameras. If you just want to bet on the USA, FanDuel and DraftKings are both offering even odds right now on USA's over-under medal count.
CNBC's Contessa Brewer.
This new Disney Marvel movie looks like it could break some records.
Yeah, it could be the movie of the year. Deadpool and Wolverine is the latest in a string of hits that are getting people back into the theaters this summer.
We had a historic low grossing Memorial weekend, but then everything turned around in June and July. From Bad Boys Ride or Die in early June, Inside Out 2, an absolute juggernaut, now the highest grossing animated film of all time, Quiet Place Day 1, Despicable Me 4, and Twisters most recently, and now Deadpool and Wolverine. Movie theaters are on a roll.
ComScore's Paul DeGarabedian on CNBC. On today's watch list, we get some earnings from a biggie, too. McDonald's, plus On Semi, Sprouts, Tilray, and Phillips.
There's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger with your Monday report. When we return on America in the Morning, new warning against TikTok from the DOJ after these messages. Welcome back here with America in the Morning. BMW issues auto recall. Correspondent Mike Hempen reports.
The automaker says the recall of 291,000 SUVs is because the interior cargo rails can detach in a crash, increasing the risk of injury. The recall covers certain X3 SUVs from the 2018 through 2023 model years. BMW says that it will replace the rear cargo rail bolts that attach to the vehicle body. It's not known if there have been any injuries due to the problem. BMW plans to notify owners of the recall by letter starting in late August. I'm Mike Hempen.
The U.S. Justice Department is issuing a new warning and legal action against TikTok. Correspondent Jackie Quinn explains.
The Justice Department's accusing TikTok of harnessing high-tech pathways to gather information about American users based on issues like gun control, abortion, and religion. Government lawyers told the court TikTok and parent company ByteDance in Beijing have used an internal web suite system called LARC to send sensitive data about U.S. subscribers, which is stored and accessible on Chinese servers. An IT expert, Anton Debura of Johns Hopkins University, last year warned of this type of activity.
A really naive time where people just let their data go all over the place.
A new law may soon ban TikTok in the U.S., with warnings the Chinese government may use this data to shape the content American users receive. I'm Jackie Quinn.
America in the Morning for Monday, July 29th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
Kamala Harris is closing the polling gap with Donald Trump. I'm Jackie Quinn.
Donald Trump and J.D. Vance teaming up at a rally in St. Cloud, Minnesota. I'm Julie Walker.
The world reacting to a deadly weekend attack on Israel. I'm Clayton Neville.
America's top diplomats have visited Japan for security talks. I'm Karen Chamas.
After a positive report on consumer spending, an interest rate cut looms.
Superhero fatigue was no problem for Deadpool and Wolverine this weekend. I'm Kevin Carr.
A Florida school board appeared unlikely to fire an employee who allowed her transgender daughter to play girls' high school volleyball. I'm Haya Panjwani.
We're back after these messages. At the national map with today's weather on America in the Morning, here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
An interesting start to the work week can be expected from the northeast to coastal sections of the mid-Atlantic today, with a disturbance sliding westward from the Atlantic Ocean, coming on shore with showers and even thunder showers for some from Maine southward through the Delmarva Peninsula. This will mark the beginning of an early week period that looks to be in sharp contrast with the rather pleasant conditions that residents of many of these same areas were able to enjoy over the weekend, now replaced with increasing humidity and a warm-up for later this week. Farther to the west, a different storm pivoting through the Great Lakes region brings showers and some thunderstorms, some heavy, from western Virginia, much of West Virginia, and even parts of North Carolina, across parts of eastern Kentucky, with spotty coverage of storms through both lower and upper Michigan as well. Areas to the west of that zone, from western Kentucky through Illinois and parts of Wisconsin and Iowa, instead face the risk for severe thunderstorms later today and into tonight, where strong winds and flash flooding are possible, marking another in a series of days with severe weather potential for parts of the Midwest and even the northern plains. From the Dakotas into northern sections of Nebraska, storms may bring hail as well as damaging winds and flooding downpours later today. In the southeast, the streak of wet days continues, but some hints of drier conditions to come may emerge from Louisiana into Mississippi, as the area from Alabama into Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina stands the best chance of picking up numerous thunderstorms today. Southeast Texas may still have some spotty storms, though. Otherwise, monsoon thunderstorms continue from Arizona into New Mexico, with showers for Washington and Oregon and some steady rain along the Washington coast. In Seattle, look for rain and drizzle at times today with a high of 66. In Little Rock, Arkansas, expect decreasing clouds with a high of 94. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Follow us wherever you get your podcast. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Since she was handed the reins of the Democrat Party, a flood of political donations have poured in for Vice President Kamala Harris' presidential campaign. As correspondent Jackie Quinn reports, there are Republican predictions that excitement will soon fade.
I'm ready to debate Donald Trump. I have agreed to the previously agreed upon September 10th debate. He agreed to that previously. Now it appears he's backpedaling, but I'm ready. And I think the voters deserve to see the split screen that exists in this race on a debate stage. And so I'm ready. Let's go.
The Democratic presidential campaign says Kamala Harris is closing the polling gap with Donald Trump and raising big money from donors. Just 1 week in, and Kamala Harris's presidential election campaign says she raised $200 million.
Donald Trump and his extreme allies want to take our nation back to failed trickle-down economic policies, back to union busting, back to tax breaks for billionaires. Donald Trump and his allies want to cut Medicare and Social Security.
Key supporter, Maryland Governor Wes Moore on ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos.
The more people get to know the vice president, the more people are excited about her vision for the future.
He was asked about Republicans hammering Harris on immigration, which she was supposed to be fixing as vice president.
Actually worked with both Democrats and Republicans to get a deal done.
But the deal was scuttled after Donald Trump pressured Republicans to vote it down. Campaigning in Minnesota, Trump said of Harris,
"She has no clue. She's evil."
Republicans predict the buzz over Kamala Harris will soon dissipate.
You're going to have this 30-day honeymoon period. Things will settle. Folks will get back, talk to their family and friends, come off a summer vacation, put their kids in school, all of that sort of stuff. And then they'll start really thinking about what this race really means.
I'm Jackie Quinn.
Audio of New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu, courtesy of ABC This Week with George Stephanopoulos. More from the GOP on the campaign trail in Minnesota. Correspondent Julie Walker reports both former President Trump and Vice President candidate J.D. Vance believe that the usually blue state could be in play, with some polls showing a statistical dead heat.
Donald Trump and J.D. Vance teaming up at a rally in St. Cloud, Minnesota, a state that has not backed the GOP in 52 years. Trump talking up his support for police and deportation of migrants while attacking his Democratic rival, Vice President Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris's deadly destruction of America's borders is completely and totally disqualifying for her to be president.
Vance also on the attack.
They told us that Joe Biden was Abraham Lincoln. And now the media tells us that Kamala Harris is Martin Luther King Jr. Can you believe it? But we all know she's not MLK, just as Joe Biden was not Abraham Lincoln. We know that she is a card-carrying member of the San Francisco lunatic fringe. Ain't that right?
The Harris campaign calls the attacks a desperate lie from a desperate campaign.
I saw the other day Kamala Harris question my loyalty to this country. That's the word she used, loyalty. And it's an interesting word, simplify, loyalty, because there is no greater sign of disloyalty to this country than what Kamala Harris has done at our southern border. And I'd like to ask the Vice President, what has she done to question my loyalty to this country?
Trump won Michigan in 2016 only to lose 4 years later. He's increasingly focusing on the state where he'd like to put Democrats on defense.
No person who deliberately releases these kinds of savage criminals to prey on our youth and our people, not just youth, elderly people too, are tremendous targets, should ever be trusted with power. Again, she has no clue. She has no clue. She's evil.
I'm Julie Walker.
The U.S. says it is in communication with Israel and Lebanon after a weekend attack blamed by Hezbollah that left 12 Israeli Arab children dead. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
The rocket attack that killed 12 kids at the Golan Heights soccer field also injured 20 people, and according to Israeli officials, it is the deadliest attack on Israel since the October 7th attack by Hamas. Israel and the U.S. pointing to Hezbollah for the attack. The Israeli military confirming that it went after the Lebanese terror group with retaliatory strikes deep inside Lebanese territory. Lawmakers in the U.S. paying close attention. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer spoke with CBS's Face the Nation.
We know that Iran, through its surrogates, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, is really the real evil in this area. And Israel has every right to defend itself against Hezbollah like they do against Hamas.
Republican Senator Lindsey Graham also reacting on CBS's Face the Nation.
I am very worried that not only you could open up a second front, but they could use these 3 or 4 months before our election to sprint to a nuclear weapon. And we have to put them on notice that cannot happen.
In the wake of the weekend attack, concerns are growing that the conflict between Israel and Hamas will lead to a broader regional war. Iowa Senator Joni Ernst concerned about how Democrats are handling the continued war in the Middle East. She specifically honed in on Vice President Kamala Harris with Fox News.
Her appeasement of Iran and the enabling of these terrorist proxies has not only killed Israelis, but we must remember that in that attack, we had over 40 Americans that lost their lives on October 7th. We have 8 Americans still being held by Hamas in the Gaza Strip, 5 of whom we believe might still be alive.
The vice president's office confirms that she has been briefed and is closely watching the situation. The State Department says de-escalation efforts between Israel and militant groups in the Middle East continue today. I'm Clayton Neville.
Coming up, real person or AI? When America in the Morning continues after these messages. America in the Morning continues. I'm John Trout. Amid potential threats from China and North Korea, the United States is unveiling a major revamp of its military command structure in Japan. Correspondent Karen Shamas reports on a key security meeting between the allies in Tokyo.
Today we unveil some of the most important advances in the U.S.-Japan defense ties in the history of our alliance.
America's top diplomats have visited Japan for security talks, focusing on bolstering military cooperation as they underscore the threat from China.
And the bottom line is clear. The U.S.-Japan alliance is stronger today than ever, and getting stronger by the day.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin joined their Japanese counterparts Yoko Kamikawa and Minoru Kihara at the Japan-US Security Consultative Committee in Tokyo. The meeting is known as the 2+2 security talks. Both sides agreed to upgrade the command and control of U.S. forces in the East Asian country and to strengthen American licensed missile production there. Secretary of State Antony Blinken described the rising threat from China as
the challenging security environment.
In the joint statement issued after the talks, the ministers said China's foreign policy seeks to reshape the international order for its own benefit at the expense of others.
We have a shared vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific. We strongly oppose the PRC's efforts to unilaterally change the status quo by force in the East China Sea and the South China Sea around Taiwan. We agree on the importance of upholding peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait.
They called China's behavior a serious concern to the alliance and the entire international community. I'm Karen Shamas.
There are hopes that the recent report on cooling U.S. inflation will bolster chances for a September interest rate cut. Helping matters, a positive report on consumer spending. Jennifer King explains.
Prices rose 0.1% from May to June, according to the Commerce Department's latest report on consumer spending. That's up from a flat reading the previous month and puts inflation at 2.5%, down just slightly from 1 year ago. Goods like gasoline, new motor vehicles, and auto parts were down, but some non-durable goods like medical products were up, along with services led by international travel, housing, and utilities. So-called core inflation, excluding food and energy, rose 0.2% to 2.6%, the same as a year ago. Today's figures suggest inflation is cooling even as the economy expands. On Thursday, the government said the GDP grew at a rate of 2.8% last quarter. The central bank will meet, and Fed Chair Jerome Powell has already said that this summer's employment, spending, and price data has strengthened his confidence that inflation is headed in the right direction, which could allow an interest rate cut as soon as September. Jennifer King, Washington.
There are tons of digital personas being created by AI to make you think you're speaking with a real person, but dead bots are built based on data from a deceased loved one. Here's Chuck Palm with that in today's Tech Report.
According to a report from NPR, Silicon Intelligence, a Chinese company, can build a lifelike digital persona of your deceased relatives. And just as creepy as it sounds, these new personas are referred to as dead bots. Lifelike human personas were brought about with the digital boyfriend craze from about a year ago. These particular digital interactive personas are based on data input, and the more actual data you have from a relative, the more lifelike it will appear. Sun Kai, senior exec at Silicon Intelligence, said they could scrape data from social media sites like Facebook and Instagram posts. Kai, who admits regularly talking to the deadbot version of his own mother, says that when he describes this technology, it's almost as transcending death, and that whether she is alive or dead does not matter because when I think of her, I can find her and talk to her. In a sense, she's alive, at least in my perception. U.S. analysts believe that this will not catch on simply due to the amount of private data necessary to train a deadbot. Chime in at allthetoptech.tech. I'm Chuck Palm.
With Monday Sports, here's America in the Morning's Robert Workman.
Baseball Sunday, the Guardians edge the Phillies 4-3 in a matchup of the two league leaders. Cleveland takes 2 out of 3 for the weekend. Orioles fought off the Padres 8-6, snapping San Diego's 7-game winning streak. Ryan Mountcastle with a pair of 2-run singles.
You know, sometimes a little adversity is good for a team, and hopefully this win today can, catapult us into the rest of the year.
Paul Goldschmidt's homer in the bottom of the ninth boosted the Cardinals over the Nationals 4-3. Rays shaded the Reds 2-1, scoring both of their runs in the 8th on a strike 3 wild pitch and a bases loaded walk. Giants completed a 4-game sweep of the Rockies. Mariners sank the White Sox. That makes 14 consecutive losses for Chicago, tying the franchise record set all the way back in June. Twins shut out the Tigers. Bailey Ober allowed just 1 hit and struck out 11 in 8 innings. Wins for the Blue Jays, Angels, Yankees, Braves, Dodgers, Pirates, and Cubs. And the Brewers barreled over the Marlins, but the star of the show was Miami's Xavier Edwards. He hit the first pitch of the game out of the park, then proceeded to become just the second Marlin ever to hit for the cycle, beating out an infield single in the 9th to complete it. Baseball's trade deadline is tomorrow. At the Paris Olympics, U.S. men's basketball blew away Serbia. Kevin Durant, 23 points in just 17 minutes off the bench. U.S. women's soccer blasted Germany and secured a spot in the quarterfinals. Sophia Smith scored twice. In the pool, Tori Husk and Gretchen Walsh finished 1-2 in the women's 100-meter butterfly.
To get first and then to have Gretchen get second and do that all for Team USA, it's just so amazing.
Gold and silver for the U.S. in women's fencing as well. Lee Kiefer beating Lauren Scruggs in the final. After 2 days of medal competition, Team USA has 12 medals to lead the field. 3 gold, 6 silver, 3 bronze. Japan and Australia each have 4 gold medals. That's Monday Sports.
Thank you, sir. When America in the Morning continues, Florida law tested that bars trans students from participating in girls' and women's sports after these messages. Welcome back here with America in the Morning. While there was no surprise as to which movie was the big winner at the box office over the weekend, what shocked many was what the history-making film raked in. Kevin Carr has details.
It seems that Disney has learned a lesson this summer.
Let's give the people what they came for.
Marvel Studios' Deadpool and Wolverine sliced their way to the top of the box office this weekend with a spectacular $205 million. That's the highest grossing opening weekend for an R-rated movie ever, and it's the 8th highest opening weekend of all time.
I'm the Messiah.
And with more than $438 million in the global box office so far, this was enough to push the Marvel Cinematic Universe franchise's overall gross to north of $30 billion.
Disney brought him back. They're going to make him do this till he's 90.
Coming in a distant but still respectable second was Twisters with $35 million.
I said if you feel it, chase it!
That's only a 56% drop for the summer disaster film, so it's holding up quite well against the superhero competition. Despicable Me 4 came in third with $14 million, pushing its domestic gross closer to $300 million. And Disney's other summer powerhouse, Inside Out 2, was in fourth place with $8.3 million.
And things couldn't be better.
Rounding out the top 5 was the indie horror film Longlegs.
I know you're not afraid of a little bit of dark.
With $6.7 million over the weekend, this breakout thriller's total stands at just under $60 million with a budget of less than 10. I'm Kevin Carr.
The 2021 Fairness in Women's Sports Act bars students born male from participating in girls' sports. A Florida public school employee faces firing because, as a mother, she stands in violation of that law. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
Jessica Norton works as a computer information specialist at Monarch High School, where her daughter played on the varsity team last year.
She misses volleyball. She misses her friends. The team misses her. So, it's no matter what anybody's political views are or their views are on transgender children, like a child's life was affected by this. None of the children on the team and none of the children that have known her, nobody cared. She was just, a regular teenage girl on a volleyball team.
A district committee recommended Norton receive a 10-day suspension, but Superintendent Howard Hepburn, who was hired in April, called for her firing. While most of the 9 school board members disagree with firing her, they didn't think Norton should go unpunished for violating the state's Fairness in Women's Sports Act.
It's hard to hear people refer to her as it. If you don't have a transgender child, you shouldn't talk on transgender children. She's a great child. She's a good girl. No matter what your beliefs are, she's still a child.
The law, which the school board lobbied against, bars students who are born male from participating in girls' sports. Norton says leaving her job would be a difficult decision.
I loved my job. I loved my job very much, and I was good at it. I never did anything illegal as far as my job is concerned.
The board postponed their final decision until next week to gather more information. I'm Haya Panjwani.
America in the Morning for Monday, July 29th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.